Eternal Return is a complicated game. There are many strategies and different playstyles, but ultimately, the goal is to be the last survivor with as many kills as possible. With a wide variety of characters and playstyles, it can be overwhelming to decide which one to play. Don't worry, I got you though. I've broken down every character in Eternal Return based on their strengths and weaknesses, and organized them based on difficulty and strategy, so you can make the most informed decision on who to pick as your main for Season 8. What's poppin' everyone? It's your boy Levi, and this is the sequel to my most popular video on the channel. I'm going to be picking the most viable weapon type for each character, where the weapon type drastically changes their playstyle. Each pick will be categorized by playstyle and have a difficulty and info tag. Same as last time, because Eternal Return is a complicated game where sometimes playstyles don't match how the character is currently played. There might be some characters who seem out of position. I personally value what the character currently does at this time, rather than what they're intended to do. An example of this is Leon, who is meant to be a duelist who gets onto his target and combos and power basic attacks with glove skill to finish off an opponent. Currently, Leon's playstyle is more dive in with shield, get your basic attacks off, and then run away, and then repeat when your shield's back off cooldown. That being said, let's start off with the assassins. As mentioned in my previous Who to Main video, assassins play a different role in Eternal Return than they do in most MOBAs. In team modes, they're meant to dive a carry and secure a kill on them, whether they trade their life for it or not. But in solos, when you only have one life, it's a bit different. These characters focus on bursting down a single target and will struggle once the game has reached safe zones. You'll want to focus on getting a lot of kills early in the game, rather than winning. The characters that fall into this playstyle are Kathy, Daniel, Jenny, Hedrin, Alex, and Shoichi. Kathy and Daniel are your basic assassins. They both require spell combinations that aren't overly too difficult. Kathy has some CC in her kit to help you lock down your target, and she can escape with her ultimate if in an undesirable position. Daniel can ult to avoid predictable spells and damage, and will receive a heal when coming out of his ult. Amp Jenny and Shuriken Hedrin both require commitment to get their kills. Jenny is typically a marksman, but when she's played Amp, she's a deadly assassin. You dash in on an opponent and drop your ultimate so that they're in the center, and then you use your carpet to pull them back in after they try to escape, and it creates a huge burst of damage. This will typically one-shot most squishies, but it does require you to commit all your resources for the kill. Slip up and you'll likely die for it. Hedrin is more mechanical, but the safer option. Her E ability is one of the best engages and escapes in the entire game. Hedrin ultimately decides which fight she wants to take and which she wants to leave. E can be used to surprise targets when channeling her ult mid-cast, and you'll arrive with a huge burst of damage. Lastly, we have Alex and Shoichi. These are the most difficult assassins to play because they both require spell rotations and commitment. Both these characters require you to be quick with your button presses, often trying to get kills before your opponent can fight back or escape. Alex's combo features multiple weapon types that you'll switch from melee to range, requiring pilots to keep track of where they're at. Shoichi's combo requires quick button presses along with fast and precise mouse movements. Next up, we have the fighters and the tanks. Tanks really only play a role in team modes in this game, and when played solo, they're built more like bruisers. I'm going to be splitting the fighters into two categories, the Juggernauts and the Duelists. Juggernauts are who your tanks and team modes would be. They're bulky characters that do a mix of tanking and dealing damage when they get onto their target. The Juggernauts are 11, Estelle, Glove Hyunwoo, Isaac, Leon, Magnus, Marcus, Lennox, Mai, and Yon. The easy characters, 11, Estelle, Hyunwoo, Isaac, Leon, Magnus, and Marcus, are all very similar with very minor differences. All these characters you want to floor it at your target. Some of them have dashes to make it easier, some of them have slows, but overall, once you pick your target, you floor it at them. I will still give an honorable mention to Tonfa Amp Hyunwoo. While similarly to Glove, you do run down your opponent. However, Tonfa Amp plays more like an assassin where you charge people into walls and go for the ult one-shot. Lennox, Mai, and Yan all have more depth to them. Lennox in the past had a one-shot combo from the base build, playing more like a burst main, but now she likes extended fights with her bulkier build. I think she has too much self-heal to be a duelist. Mai is borderline in the easy category. She just has one mechanic that takes her into medium. Good Mai will manage her passive using cameras and popping with her E to weave in and out of fight. This isn't required for most fights, but it is enough to separate her from easy. Yan requires your abilities to stack your passive and then comboing them together. His abilities will then augment if he has a certain amount of stack. As for the duelists, we have Chiara, Felix, Fiora, Lee Dailin, Luke, Razi, Yuki, Camillo, Elena, Laura, Nikki, Viola, Sua, and Aiden. The thing all these characters have in common in the easy section, except for maybe Lee Dailin, is the level of commitment to a fight. Chiara, Felix, Fiora, Lee Dailin, Luke, Razi, and Yuki all have fairly simple kits. These characters all require pilots to make an outplay when presented with a bad situation. As said, except for Lee Dailin, who can opt to use her ultimate as an escape. Camillo, Laura, and Elena have more complex kits than the previously mentioned. Camillo and Laura both have to weave in basic attacks between their spells, and Camilla has an augmented Q after multiple uses. Elena has a freeze gauge which she has to manage. Freezing opponents is a powerful tool, but if she doesn't get a kill off the first freeze, it's likely her target will escape or put the pressure back onto her before she can build another one. Nikki, Piolo, and Sua both require the player to have knowledge of the enemy that you're fighting. These characters, whether it's the parry, CC immunity, or the spell shield, need to time their abilities with an incoming spell to block it. Finally, we have Aiden. Aiden takes a lot more mechanical work than everyone else in this category. You have to keep track of passive stacks as well as ability augmentation. On top of that, his abilities are all skill shots or dodgeable. He's a very unforgiving character, where messing up one combo or rotation can leave you dead. Then we have the burst mages. These are mages who like to fight or have a one-shot combo. They rely on timing and waiting for the right moment to strike. Since I didn't feel there was enough characters for battle mages to have their own category, some of the traditional battle mages of this game will be split between burst mages and duelists for where they most fit. The burst mages are Barbara, Bianca, Cicella, Nathapon, Adela, and Tazia. Barbara and Bianca are two very ult-reliant characters. When your ultimate is up, you go for the kill. When it's down, you're chilling. You land all your spells, you're going to get a kill 9 times out of 10. Cicella is more of the same, but instead of relying on your ult, you rely on your E pull. If you hit the pull, you vomit all your spells onto the one location, and if you miss, you wait and try again to do the same thing. The same is also with Nathapon. If you hit your E, you've done the hard part. Nathapon is a little bit more difficult than the others because he has slower projectiles and requires a lot more timing. After hitting your E pull, you want to time your next basic attack to pull them into your W. Most characters with only one dash or without a parry won't be able to get out of that pull. Then you can unload the rest of your damage into them. I was debating whether to put Adela and Tazia in medium or hard because I think their base level, they aren't overly too difficult to play. If you land Queen, you follow it up with W, E, Rapier skill, and R. However, Adela is best utilized when you can play off her pawn and knight combos to get stuns before following up with Queen. However, these two characters have incredibly high skill ceiling, where it will take you tons of practice to reach the limits of these characters. At a base level, Adela's combo is very simplistic. Tazia requires proper positioning to weave in and out of melee range collecting glass shards. Once you have max stacks, firing the sword in a pre-placed wall and ulting on top of it will 100-0 most targets. If your opponent has any knowledge of this, they will do whatever they can to avoid getting hit into your wall. This requires pilots to get creative with not telegraphing their one-shot combo, holding onto it until the precise moment. The counterpart to burst mages are artillery mages, and they have the exact opposite playstyle. These mages want to launch out spells consistently poking out their target without getting too close. All these characters want to keep their opponents at range and don't mind playing a slow fight. The artillery mages are Sniper Aya, Eva, Adriana, Emma, Tia, Zahir, Adina, and Hayes. Sniper Aya is the current most popular form of Aya, and like Ava, you sit back as far as possible and spam your projectiles. Both these characters are very linear, and Aya even has a few tools of dealing with characters that get onto her. Adriana and Emma don't necessarily fit this category too well, but I wouldn't call them burst mages either. While they don't consistently throw out spells, they play at the same range as artillery mages. Adri, Emma, Tia, and Zahir all require proper spacing to play the character effectively. These characters all have abilities that need to combo with each other, and all have escapes when in bad situations. Well, all but Zahir do. Zahir having no mobility spells and a skill shot makes it hard for him to survive in the current meta. And finally, we have Adina and Hayes. Both these characters, you'll throw multiple spell rotations in a fight. On top of this, they can each augment their abilities to create combos that you'll need to learn for specific scenarios. Oh, and did I mention that most of their abilities are skill shots too? You'll have to be accurate to survive. And while we're talking about long-range characters, let's get into the Marksman. These are all characters that want to attack from far, but instead of using spells, they want a basic attack. Positioning is important with these characters, as a lot of them are built glass cannon style. These characters are Bernice, Hart, Bo Hedgen, Isel, Crit Jenny, Rio, and William. All these characters, with the exception of William, aren't overly too complicated. They all have simple kits, and your primary damage comes from right-clicking. The complex part is the kiting and the spacing. These characters will all die very quickly, whether it's a melee fighter on top of them or a mage throwing spells at them. They are susceptible to getting one shot, and positioning is of the utmost importance. Keep your distance kiting away from melees, and use your quick reactions to dodge spells from mages. William is the exception here. William has to slide to his baseballs to dodge spells and change positioning rather than dashing. This makes them a little bit more challenging because if you're caught out, you might not get the time to do so. And the last of the main categories, we have the supports. These characters thrive in team mode settings rather than solos. Johan has been the token support character for many seasons now, and like last time, he's joined by Priya. Priya does have a little bit more viability in solos compared to the rest of the supports when played like an artillery mage. We have a new addition to the support group now, with Theodore. Theodore provides utility to his team in the form of CC, movement speed buffs, and healing. He is exceptionally difficult to play in solos due to his susceptibility to die, but in team modes where he's not the primary focus and has heal, he's a little bit easier. You probably noticed that a few characters are missing. confusing. And that's because I'd like to add a non-traditional category to the mix, a category that I like to call a minigame. Each of the characters in this category all have a minigame mechanic which is necessary for them to play the game. These characters are Nadine, Shukai, Carla, Martina, Irem, Sylvia, Ekion, and Celine. Nadine and Shukai have passive stacking passives. Nadine requires stacks to increase her damage, and depending on the hunt that she takes, determines how many stacks it increases by. Shukai requires stacks from cooking, and depending on the rarity of the food that is cooked, it will increase his stack. While Shukai's stacks cap out, Nadine's can stack endlessly. Carla and Martina both have mechanics that are unique to no other Eternal Return character. Carla cannot basic attack and only has the harpoon periodically that she can activate with right click. Instead, her Q is on a low enough cooldown that it replaces her basic attack. Martina also doesn't have a traditional basic attack and is a very weak champion in the early and mid game. The character relies on her passive where she records videos of objectives and players to gain stacks. At max stacks, she goes into broadcast mode, becoming one of the highest late game damage dealers. Irem and Sylvia are two shapeshifter characters. While they have a lot of tools in their kits, their abilities aren't overly difficult to understand. You will have to learn two sets of abilities. Irem has her cat form, and Sylvia has her bike form. Both characters start as ranged in human form and become melee when shapeshifting. Ekion's minigame is that he's locked into his weapon upon selection. There are 3 weapon types you can choose from, all with different effects. These weapons can all be upgraded with a rare resource, and they have different stats depending on which rare resource is chosen. On top of this, you also have to manage your VF meter. Your ultimate will be locked while your meter isn't full, and upon reaching full meter, you'll slowly drain VF and have to manage it using your weapon skill. Upon complete drain, you'll be weaker than your regular form. And finally, we have Celine. Like Adriana, Celine fits into the category of somewhere between Artillery Mage and Burst Mage, but not really fitting either that well. Often regarded as one of the hardest characters to play in the game, let alone master, I've included Celine in this section because her mechanic of detonated bombs. When playing Celine, you can throw out bombs with Q and cluster them with R up to 5 for a stun and big damage. Getting 5 bombs is ideal, but to do so, you can't just throw out 5 bombs and explode them. Optimal Celine play has you keep track of your previously detonated bombs so that you can use the shells on the ground to stack up to 5. This is necessary as she can only hold 3 bombs at a time and has to reset her bomb count using her E. Overall, with more character releases, some characters have been adjusted as easier or harder in the grand scope of ER. I encourage you to try out many characters of your preferred playstyle. You might even surprise yourself with what characters you like playing. And of course, I'll be in the comments to answer any specific character questions that you might have. Thank you so much for watching if you made it to this point. The plan is to put out one of these every other season, because I don't think the viability will change too much between one season. I want to definitely put one out for the full game release in season 10. Like the video and subscribe if you're enjoying Eternal Return, and be sure to click the video in the end card to see me go through the new battle pass for season 8.